Hello, everybody. This is episode 6 of Our Roots and Tea. We are here, and you're listening because we want to explore our minds and question everything around us. So, topics such as spirituality, spiritual awakening, the journey, meditation, religion, philosophy, healing, all that stuff, miracles, all that stuff you can think of. This is what we're here for, and we're here to discuss that. And tonight I'm actually here with another good friend of mine. He's the wise David. I don't know if he agrees with me if he's wise or not, but I think he's pretty wise.
I
But
wouldn't say I'm wise, but yeah, sure.
yeah. And tonight we will be trying out the classic green tea with jasmine. So the brand is Taylor's. On the bottom it says fresh and floral. I think that's kind of a perfect fit for some of the stuff we'll be discussing tonight. We can go pretty deep tonight. Well, it depends on how we feel, but I mean, I guess to quickly start off and to dive right into it, I guess, how you been, man? David, how you been? How's it going? How's life with this pandemic, or the adjustments that you had to make?
It's been kind of interesting. Certainly has ups and downs, but just with the disease and with the politics and with the riots, I thought for a moment it would probably subside for a little bit, but then later, as we get closer and closer to the election, I think it's January. In January is when they finalize everything with the electoral college and see who's got the most votes and stuff.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right now I think currently, for the most part, I think the news is focused more on the new batches of COVID. So that's been kind of interesting too.
Okay. And
Yeah.
are you doing anything specific, during your day to kind of, I mean, because I'm sure at some point in time, maybe you might feel a little down or just feeling a little emotional. So I was wondering if you have methods or ways to go about it.
Well, I mean, before COVID, before the whole shutdown, I'll probably, since the passing of my recent friend, I would have probably call up a close friend who was also close with the friend that we had that just passed away, and probably would have met up, converse, probably reached out to all of our other friends who knew him, and probably just pick a day and time and sit, probably, and reminisce of what the good times.
Yeah,
that we spent.
That's great, man.
Because as you get older, like they say, it's harder to make friends, but
it is.
Now you kind of see that there's some people that are around, even though they're busy and have a life of their own, have kids. They're those that you come to in a short period of time come to know and then cherish of the relationship that's built from it. Yeah, but I mean, right now there's not much we can do. A lot of people are afraid of what's going on with COVID and the whole troublesome with the shutdown and all the policies that are being pushed surrounding it too.
Mm-hmm. When your friend, he didn't it wasn't like COVID, right? That it was something else, right? Or
yeah, I don't know, because how I found out, I was at work
Okay.
And a friend had texted me on Facebook, um, said that it was an emergency and wanted me to call him up. I didn't see the message until like 2 hours later
Yeah.
because I was working. And when I called him, he had said that my friend had passed away. Our friend had passed away, and how we all found out was that he was supposed to, I think, show up for work for one of the days that he was scheduled for, but then didn't didn't call and wasn't picking up any of the calls that were being made to his cell phone. So a bunch of his coworkers like showed up at his apartment. Um, when they had got in, they had found that he was still in bed and that he already passed. So he probably was he had passed away when he was asleep.
Oh
But
shit.
yeah, a real close friend, I believe it was like a childhood friend of his, had reached out to my other friend who had contacted me.
Yeah.
Has said that his coworkers had mentioned that he was experiencing some issues with his intestine. So I don't know if that is considered one of the symptoms for having COVID, because I know that I think it's like shortness of breath and loss of taste. But
Taste and smell. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I really don't know. I think because I know right now there are different strains of COVID in other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that was all information that we got. He had passed away in his sleep. It sounded like.
Shit. Wow. That's this is like so sudden though. It's like I mean, did the coroners actually examine the real cause of death, or was this still like a guessing game?
Um, that's a very good question. I didn't like after the matter of fact that had happened, news of that had happened. It it was pretty hard, and I know a lot of a friend that had contacted me. We were just, I guess, we didn't want to find out more. We'll probably find out later at the funeral. You know, if well, probably won't be able to make it to the funeral, but when his body is buried, we'll probably maybe get a chance to meet up with his close friend and then ask, because like right now with, I guess, COVID, we're not able to um, meet up in large groups.
Yeah.
And a lot, and right now, well, since uh, I guess with the whole shut in, everyone's been kind of a bit um,
Yeah.
unhappy and depressed.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's kind of crazy because the fact that when someone passed away and then you want to is you want to leave some kind of memory, right? And so you have funerals, you have these kind of memorial service, and but you can't even do that, during COVID, and just something about that. It's like it's that feeling is wow, same with like um the students graduating from school and also weddings. You can't do any of the gatherings, and it's just kind of mind-blowing to me how, yeah, it's like almost like a sense of isolation and loneliness for everyone, really.
Well, I mean, I think it was 2 weeks before we had made plans to like all meet up. This is before the news of
Yeah.
the second shutdown,
Hmm.
and we were just talking on Facebook in a group chat with a couple of other friends of ours, but because of COVID, and he's a single dad, and has a son, so um, we couldn't throw caution to the wind, and he was really focused on being safe and just
Wow.
keeping his son safe. Yeah, he really.
Oh shit.
On his Facebook, he uploads a lot of pictures of him and his son
Mm, okay.
whenever they spend time together.
Do
But
you do you know how his son is doing or the family's doing?
I bet his family is torn and broken because he doesn't live with them. So his folks I know are from the Bay Area, but
Okay.
he lives all the way in Oakland.
Oakland. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a good hour or so
Okay.
drive. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he has. I don't know if he has custody of his son or not. I never really bugged him about it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I chose to leave that alone. Seems pretty private about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his personal matter. Yeah, I get it. And you met him like through school or you met him from other friends?
Yeah, so I met this guy on one of this music video
Okay.
shoot, and
Okay.
and we kind of like hit off pretty well,
Hmm.
and we stayed in touch. And he likes to like go to different places to taste different foods at different restaurants, and from
Yeah.
there, he invited me to. I think it was like not. It wasn't a tournament, but it was a game night. 12 questions, and then people were put into like different teams.
Oh, like
Like
trivia
groups of
basically.
12. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but so he invited me, and then I met him with a few students who I had seen over at San Jose State, but then we got to know each other more, and from there, like every month or so, like on the weekend, we would sometimes travel to Redwood City or any other place just to like meet up, have some food. Um, but that's how I met the guy that had passed away.
Right.
Yeah, so it was through friend of a friend,
Okay.
and we stayed in touch. And I think like for once every 2 3 months when there was a movie out and everybody wanted to go see, we just like call each other or communicate it through chat just to see if anyone want to meet up and go. And yeah, that's that's basically it for the most part.
Damn. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've gotten pretty close to him then, because probably hang out with him a lot and had conversations.
Yeah, I think it was last year. Um, he invited us to come down to Oakland and sleep over for like a couple days. He manages and runs a well at the time when he was alive. He managed and ran it was like a I think it was like a Asian fusion fast food restaurant. I think it
Oh,
was called Golden Monkey
oh,
over at over at um in Oakland, yeah. So
okay.
and he was there for some time too.
Because I'm guessing this happened recently too, or somewhat recently. I mean, for you, well, what kind of, I guess, reflection do you have, or even your thought process, like after the fact it happened and reality set in? Yeah, we're getting in pretty personal.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to answer everything though, if it gets too personal.
Well, I mean, I was a bit surprised, but I was also disappointed. You
Okay.
know, I guess I just to cherish the thought. It's a lot of times everyone's busy with their own life. They're trying to get to a better place. Find better work. Um, just be able to handle being alive. But I I was shocked. Never. I mean, I would have never thought that someone like him would have been gone too soon.
Right. No, and it's interesting then where you made a good point too at earlier is that people are always generally very busy, right? They always want to be doing something, and I guess in another words kind of take life for granted, and as cliche as it sounds, but I think it's very true. Once something happens, then you realize like, oh wow, it's actually that fragile.
Yeah, but the thing was that he was kind of friendly, even though we did not see each other as much as we liked because we lived in like different parts of the city.
Yeah.
Me here, he was all the way past near San Francisco. The fact was that he was that kind of friend that would respond no matter like the time of day.
Oh wow.
Um, he always had something to say. I mean, even though it wasn't really much and it was just like a simple yes or no, we still were able to hold or cherish that friendship, that closeness. You know,
Yeah.
there are not a lot of people. I would presume. I mean, speaking on what I've um, experienced,
Yeah.
that's. I think you've heard also that quote or saying, what is it? Uh, I might butcher the quote, or those people who are real, who are there for you. Those are the kind of friends that you make, good
Yeah.
friends that you make that are just, those are hard to find. And it did very much like the news of his death didn't hit me until like maybe 2 hours after my friend had called. And it was also the last day. It was actually the last day uh, of it was the last day I was working at that job too.
Oh wow.
So it was a double whammy.
Oh
And
whammy.
yeah, it was. But then the thing is that I mean, even as much as I'm sad to know that he's gone,
Yeah.
um, I still am. I don't know. I have this. I'm not. I guess not traumatized by it. You know what I mean?
Kind of like
It's not,
PTSD, or
or more like it's so painful. I can't like, you know. It's not like a breakup. You know, it takes
right.
months and months for you to like get over it. It isn't something traumatic where you're hung you're hung onto that
Yeah.
memory. You know, I mean, it was sad that that he had passed, but also he did. I think he might have passed away peacefully because
Mhm.
he was when he was found, he was in his bed and he was asleep. And um they didn't say he was like, it didn't look like he was like struggling or anything, but but um, you know I'll take the win where I could get it. But
Right.
that sounds kind of crappy. But I mean, he was a good he was real. you know he was a
Right.
real friend. That's something I cherish. And also, it's not really much I could say about it, or
Yeah.
much more.
No, I understand. And because the question I was about to ask you was, um, because earlier you were saying it's hard to find, these kind of true friends, right? And why, from your point of view, why is it, or why do you think that is so difficult to not just make friends, but make friends that are like meaningful, like this?
I'm sure that in any relationship that you either enter or find or discover, you will you won't know until years or it's not like instant, you know. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Everyone for the most part are like usually selfish in some way or in some shape or form. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not, you know. People in terms of their traits. Sometimes me, I'm more of an introvert, so it
Yeah.
may take me a while to you know warm up to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people, I guess, depending on the environment they're in, or I guess their lifestyle, or who they associated with, you know, how often they go out, how often they hang out with their friends and party, may have more of the personality to, you know, be really open, you know, take the center stage.
Right. Right.
But I'll try my best to give a simple answer. Yeah, I could only say that it is more so of a testament of the time and place and who you are at that moment, and also who that person is at the moment as well. Because even though at one point you guys come together and you guys meet, depending on who you are, that person may just be there just wanting a specific thing, even though it's like small, like maybe um attention, for example,
Yeah.
you know, or in their personality, they're not really seeking for anything more than that, or just to be noticed. Um,
Okay.
I personally tend to like meet people, but then sometimes maybe what they're doing is not like wrong or something, but
Yeah.
maybe it probably isn't something I would want to familiarize with, or just isn't interesting to me. So it varies.
Interesting. Okay.
But then usually there, I'm sure you've heard stories, but also what I've shared talking about this friend of mine is that there are just months where it's just instant, you just know right away.
Yeah. Like the
You
vibe,
know,
right? The vibe, you kind
yeah,
of have something about the energy.
like you guys click, you guys like you are just being yourself, but that person immediately also understands what you're doing or saying, and then they would also kind of um jump into the conversation, and then there's like there's like a flow of speech that you guys are kind of interconnecting and locking into each other, you know. And it's I can only say it's a you can only know only through the event and the time and the struggle that you're going through
Mm.
in that time. It doesn't necessarily needs to be mean like painful. It's just, you know, life itself.
Right.
Because I have a friend that who became who we clicked, but it didn't like, unlike this friend that had passed away, it took like maybe a good 2 years before we start clicking.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's because there were things that were happening around us. There were events in his life, and then there was events in my life, and then maybe at one point we then had a similar cause, and we saw that there's a problem. For instance, this other friend that I'm close with, we didn't have like a common enemy, but it seemed like one of our friends kind of just made it he made it where we became closer. And he
Mm.
kind of like screwed that relationship himself. But like I said, it's just it's a if there's a formula to it, it's um the type of person that you've encountered, the time frame,
Yeah.
like what's going on with you and that person, if you guys ever meet each other again, you know,
You
for
know,
the most part.
that's actually very interesting. Like just everything you brought up, because now it kind of comes to me a thought about. I mean, I don't know if you believe in such things as kind of like fate or destiny, or some sense like that, because I had another friend whom I was talking to, and she believes that we all have some kind of like link. When I say link, meaning like not just in common, right? But talking about like even talking about like spiritual, some kind of spiritual link, or even some kind of wavelength that kind of brings people together.
Are you kind of referring to like a higher
Well,
thought?
I to me, yeah, I believe so, because think about it, right? Because you just mentioned how, sometimes like two people when they meet up, it's just depending on the time frame and their events and or, like their personalities or even what's going on with them at that moment, right? And then
Yeah.
they might click, and then maybe later on they kind of fall out, but then maybe years later again they all of a sudden they come back together. And so I almost feel like there has to be something that's a little bit kind of higher, like something that somehow connects the two people together, right? Just like how you and the friend who passed away. Because I mean, I don't know what you feel, but I feel like nothing like this kind of happens by coincidence. You don't just bump into someone on the street and be like, hey, we're good friends, right? It has to be certain aspects that kind of link them together.
I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand what she's referring to. Well, that stuff is true. I mean, there's a lot of us.
Yes, there
We
is a lot of us.
we. It's like, I guess it's like bacteria or viruses when they meet each other and stuff. But the part not a very good example. But we interact with one another, and then there's a ripple effect. It's
Yeah,
like chemistry. Whether or not we understand what that is, I cannot say I have an answer for that.
of course.
You know,
Yeah,
um,
it's very abstract in a way.
it is, but it is because the thing is that you're also kind of looking at, like, you mentioned fate and destiny.
Yeah.
Like like from my understanding of what destiny is, what's the best way to explain it? Like, no matter what it is that you do, whatever road that you take, you cannot change what that one road is particular, what that one road is particular meant for you. You know what I mean? Because if some it's like a future thought, or a future, like, this is what you'll be in the future.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you're like, well, that's not what I want, or that's not what I want to do.
Hmm.
um but that is your future. That's what destiny is. But then destiny would refer more so, like let me see. I know I'm yabbering on, but
No, no,
it,
it's
it's
cool.
bas- it's basically, you could take any road, but that road will still lead you back to that road that you're supposed to take.
Maybe there's kind of, like maybe at the crossroads, and then you maybe in the future, or you're predicting that you're going to be taking this road, but then somehow it's almost like maybe just a, not, I wouldn't say obstacle, but um it's almost like a path that it shows you all these, I guess, obstacles or problems, and then eventually leads you back to whatever you're supposed to be. So
So I guess
almost
destiny
timing
could
in a way.
be with, I guess, when you're using it as your destiny, it probably is referring to something.
Like something you have passion about, maybe something along those lines.
For one, it's like it's above you.
Yeah.
It's higher than
Well,
whatever it is that you're probably doing right now.
mhm.
You know, let me see if I can find an example.
Yeah.
Uh,
These are the tough questions, right? These are the tough thoughts, because
but I may go this about the wrong way. So then, like, there's I don't know if you're not that familiar with the Bible, right? So you probably heard of Moses, like,
yeah, I know
the,
Moses. Yeah.
yeah. So if I recall in scriptures, when the people of Israel were in slavery by the Egyptians,
Yeah.
there was a prophecy of someone who would deliver them. Now, Moses in the book, it was at the time, I believe, had been saved by the princes of Egypt, and then had lived away from where his people lived. So he got to experience the riches of being rich, being high class, being elite. I guess he did not know that he was going to,
to do what he did,
be the one yet to come back and then deliver his people from slavery and take them to the promised land.
Yeah.
His thought process, I'm sure, was not even close to any of that. But he went through that journey to becoming that person. Because it was in the Bible, like God came and then approached them and said, you are that person, So that's why I'm kind of saying for destiny, it's way above. It's basically it's way above my pay grade. It's probably the best analogy or best illustration I could then make the parallel to.
Right.
It's because you see that with a couple of the few people in scriptures who had that destiny. Like Gideon was a farmer. He didn't want to be a general to lead his people out of to free his people from the harassment of another tribe or another nation.
Yeah.
That's what destiny is. It's like no matter what road you take for whatever miracle it is, it still leads you back to that one road that's meant for you and you only.
Okay. Well, but that's actually interesting.
That's what I kind of I guess I kind of see what or kind of I guess interpret what destiny is.
Right.
It's like if anything, if it's a person's destiny, it's usually told by somebody other than the other person, and the person has, no sense of that a goal or purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and because the question that comes to my head is the thought is that. So let's going back to the example of Moses, right? I mean, he first started off somewhere else, and then, I guess the story was God had befalling, or the God's voice or God kind of came down and led him to this path that he took. And so the question now is the question of, okay, well, does this supposedly God type of higher power even exist, right? Because if that's the way how a lot of these figures back then find their destiny paths, or then that means something like a God voice probably exists, right? Oh, because if it doesn't, then they probably will still be doing what they're doing and not all of a sudden take another path, if you know what I mean, right?
Not quite fully what you're are you talking about, like one particular person?
Yeah, I guess.
Or you're talking about in a larger scale, like with Christianity, with Catholicism, and all that, I guess, branch of I guess they fall under Christianity, but then people who interpret it one way or another sometimes are I don't know, like they don't fall in line. Is that what you're getting at?
Kind of, but I think it was more so like I was just trying to use Moses as an example. I guess my other example would be like, the whole tale. I mean, I don't know the full story, but Noah, where like he supposedly had visions from God or visions that something was gonna happen, so he built the whole, ark to protect, I guess, his family and some other people. And so that's the thing I sometimes question, because I'm not like religious, and sometimes I kind of question if certain people will say something like, "Oh, hey, I have visions of whatever from God that this will happen." Sometimes it's so hard to believe that that's even true. I mean, I guess destiny kind of falls along the same lines too, and that's the reason why I even brought up the topic of destiny because
No, I see what you're saying because there are a few times, and it's on YouTube.
yeah,
Saying when it came to predicting the end of the world, Hollywood's made like every year or so when it's like, okay, the world's gonna end, they're gonna make a movie, and then you hear also people who are like super religious,
yeah,
like I'm not very familiar with like on the Islamic side, but like Christianity or baptism side, they would then announce to the congregation that the world's going to end. But then the fact is, this is what amuses me personally in the
yeah,
book. It's made in the book that they also hold and read and declare that they follow.
uh-huh.
Mention this says that he did not say when he was going to come.
Oh,
We do not decide when he comes. The thing is that he's the only one that knows. It's like so only God knows.
right, right. Okay, so
His son doesn't even know.
mhm,
Only when God the Father lets him know.
okay,
So all the stuff that you hear that when people then prophesy, you know, like they give you a number, they
yeah,
give you the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like this is the time when it's gonna happen, guys.
yeah,
Many times it's been. I mean, they debunk it themselves because they kind of reap what it was that they sowed.
yeah.
You know, but we don't know when he'll come. But he mentions like how he'll do it. You know, he did also mention um, things will get worse, and we've seen it through history. We've experienced
Mhm.
that time and time, even with what is going now. Mhm.
Okay, so it's almost
But
similar to like when Buddha achieved enlightenment, right? It's one of those, I guess, concepts or even idea that you don't know when it's gonna come. You don't really know exactly what it is, but sometimes you just feel it and it just kind of comes to you. Like so, it's kind of like that.
you're talking about hearing his voice. Yeah, like hearing God's voice. You're talking about experience His presence and stuff.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to compare the similarities between that and like let's say Buddha achieving enlightenment, right? Because those are such kind of really out there ideas or even so abstract where sometimes it's so hard to explain in words, right? Because it's like what you said, sometimes it's like it just comes to you or it just happens. You don't decide.
Well, yes, you could. Well, yes and no,
Yes and no.
because because if what you say you speak of a future event, or you speak
Okay.
of a prediction,
Okay.
but if it only serves you, then that is a distinct, clear debunk of what it is that you are preaching. What we see at times, what is being presented in the media,
Yeah.
whatever it is that, and it is pointed in scriptures, it always has to serve his purpose.
Okay. Almost like a higher purpose, basically. You know.
It's just this is the thing about there's what he it's thing it's diving into a lot of a lot of things, but I'll yeah, his purpose.
Okay.
And I mean whatever it is that whatever it is that he has planned is what he has.
Yeah.
um
Something we won't know supposedly because
well, a little bit, it's in the books,
oh
yeah. And it's the thing is that if you like you look at Judaism,
yeah.
whatever that's happening in the Old Testament, that's true.
Uh-huh.
But they don't really go and acknowledge Christ as the Messiah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then in the Bible, there's an Old Testament and there's the New Testament. the New Testament is it's a story of the events of Jesus coming,
Okay.
and then preaching, and then sharing the news of heaven and the new laws. But in Judaism, they don't really look at what is in the New Testament. I could be wrong. It's been a while. It's been a while.
So that's
And
the difference between Judaism and, let's say, Christianity, right? Because one is something.
so Christianity is more of the modern time. It's like now we're you have the where you're going about in other cities and other countries, and you're sharing the good news of the gospel,
Okay.
and then there's news there's the gift of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But in Judaism, they don't I believe they do not touch that stuff. Because to them, I cannot speak for them for the most part, but I just know that stuff they don't really
Okay.
touch or talk about.
Okay.
So it might be different now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would consider them to be the more kind of like the older days type kind of.
Well, they are the ones, or they are the people who, well, like they say, if you've heard probably them being mentioned as the chosen people.
Yeah.
He had to pick. Yeah. He picked the people to keep his commandments as more so of keeping his, I guess you could say, his ideas alive.
Okay.
But it is evident for them. It's a sign of his existence.
Okay.
In that particular sense,
Okay. And then Catholics are more like kind of like a different branch of Christianity, right? Is that all like related? All kind of, they're not linked. I'm pretty sure they're not.
Kind of. There's a several. I want to say there's a silver lining. Okay. There's a lining because in the Old Testament, if you've probably heard of the Ten Commandments, right? There's one particular where it's mentioned that God is a jealous God, and He's not happy when you're praying to other things. You're worshiping other things.
Mm-hmm.
The Catholics, I don't know of much of its history, but I know the reason they claim to be the truer church was because of one of the 12 apostles had shared the gospel to their city. Peter, I think is Peter and Paul, traveled to Italy at the time. Mm-hmm. That's where Italy was part of the Roman Empire and had shared the message of Christ, and then they had built the church, and then there was that claim that they were the true church.
So you don't even know if it's true.
Peter and John going there? Yeah, they went there. But
I know.
Yeah, them being a true church is a little bit.
That's what I meant. Like them claiming that we don't know.
Yeah, because they prayed to the Virgin Mary. They prayed to the apostles or the saints, which is in the Bible. That's you're breaking one of the commandments that clearly states you shall have no other gods before me, and you shall be. and they've created statues of these apostles and pray to them, which is like no.
They're violating the commandments basically.
Yeah, basically, and it's happened before. An incident where only after Noah flood, there was you probably heard of the story of Abraham, right?
I've heard. I don't know the full story, to be honest.
The name, right? His name.
Yeah, I know of the name, but I don't know the full story. So what's the full story?
But it's and also probably you've heard after Moses had passed, there's a Joshua.
Okay, yeah.
But then there's been instances where an angel has made an appearance, and then they fall on their knees and pray. But then it's even the angels have made it clear don't bow and worship me.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, for Catholicism, I'm not speaking for all of it because I know there's like, but just like an aspect of Catholicism, they don't believe in the work of the Holy Spirit, which is a
Okay.
gift. Like after Jesus had risen from the dead and he was taken to heaven, he left a gift to the disciples, the gift of the Holy Spirit, you know, in his place, because when Jesus died, he did not stay on earth. He, stayed for a little while. He made his appearances, but he had to go back to heaven because he had already died.
Oh,
You know,
okay. He's not supposed to be there, basically.
there are rules.
Ah, right.
Like on earth, there's gravity. There's a expiration date for
Okay.
for food, and also for us when we get older, we die.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So much like how supposedly, after you die, what, like your spirit, your soul only will be on this planet on Earth for only a short time, and you had to go, it flows somewhere else, basically.
Um, for the most part, it's been a while since I've dove into scripture and studied about what happens, but there's mention of it there.
You do seem to know a lot about, the all the stories in scripture, and this is great because there are questions for me where I'm always curious is that I guess this only happens in media or in movies. Now, how they always portray hell and heaven. So now my question is there even such a thing as hell and heaven, right? Is there even such a thing as, because they kind of portray, in TV shows and all that, they always portray it, hell to be like a really shitty place, and then heaven is like such a grand place and it's up there, hell is down there. I mean, is there even such a?
It is depicted in the scriptures. It is mentioned
Oh,
in
it is. Okay.
in the book of Revelation, about a city of gold. So then, these were, um, I believe, one of the 12 apostles was exiled the time when early Christianity was making its round. So then I guess he got into trouble with probably the government and was sent off to a different um, island away from where they feel he wouldn't cause them too much trouble. But what he was shown when an angel came to visit him was of what it looked like, a little glimpse of it. You know, it's a vision of it, and yeah, that is depicted in all the films that you see.
Yeah, I know. They
Yeah.
they always have something where Lucifer is the kind of like operates or runs hell, and that's like the devil supposedly.
Uh, I don't know about that part. I know
Yeah.
for he is. I'm not sure if you ever heard um uh the name that he was given, like the Prince of Principality. Like he has
Oh,
like domain on Earth.
okay.
Yeah, not the Lake of Fire. It's not a club.
Okay.
It's not where you hand out memberships.
Yeah.
There is a great divide between the heaven and the hell.
Oh, okay.
The devil. I don't know about the whole thing about devil owning hell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's like literally in TV shows and movies. They
Yeah.
they over exaggerate everything. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it is. And it's funny too because so
Because
it
that's how horror movies. That's how I think, for horror movies.
yeah,
That's how horror movies are kind of, because a lot of depiction of
yeah.
the people who died were like, not like the virgin didn't die. The girl that was like sleeping around was killed in horror movie. I think at the time it had, I think, that idea, to put that scare in people was also Yeah, it's a different topic, but
Sure.
I would say a lot of it had that influence.
Okay. So the idea of
Yeah,
like you better not be a bad person because if you do, then you go to hell. That kind of
yeah,
idea.
yeah. There's something you've done that was like horrible, or it's like
Mhm.
very sinful, like something you can't come back from. Yeah, you'll pay the price. It's
And
usually for a lot of horror movies, and it's usually the bad people who usually suffer from that. Yeah,
do
you
do
know,
you do you actually believe in that yourself? Like do you like let's say someone who was a serial killer, do you think what happens to him afterwards will be going to hell? Do you actually believe in that?
probably.
Probably. Okay.
That's a very interesting question you point out, because when Jesus was crucified, he was crucified with two other people. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you and
Oh, I
they were
didn't know about
both.
that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he when he was crucified, he when he was arrested, he was brought before, I think it might have been the governor, Pontius Pilate. Um, yeah, it's been a while since I read the Bible, but because he was brought in, the mob was given the choice to either set him free or set another person free who's a known killer or thief,
Mm.
you know. But the mob had wanted to crucify him instead.
Oh.
Wanted, but the thing about which hold on, I know I'm going off topic, but
That's
um you made a point that whether or not they will go to hell. What was very unique about that question that kind of like clicked with me was that when I mentioned that Jesus Christ was crucified and there were other two people that crucified were next to him. One of them had had I think at the time everyone knew who he was. Like he was son of God, because he went around and he had not like walked around and yelled that he was the son of God, but news of that had spread. So I'm assuming it was probably well known
yeah.
around the city. People have talked about it.
Yeah.
But um, one thief would say, if you are, as powerful as you seem, this promised Messiah, this Christ that's been foretold, come out of that cross. And there are other people who who wanted that as well, because there's already this idea of who this Christ-like character was. But then one of the thief, I don't know what came over him, but back to what you said about, can a serial killer, would he go to heaven or would he go to hell?
Yeah.
That thief had, I think he was very desperate, or who knows, but then he had asked Jesus that if Jesus were to die, if he would remember him. You go to heaven, please remember me as well. I mean, back to your serial killer. I mean, if by some, miracle, this is like probably off the wall, he was visited and he had a change of heart at that moment, realizing, like there was salvation right there in front of him, maybe.
Okay. So
But what? Yeah, but that for that particular like guy that was sentenced for a crime, he apparently, of those two thieves, that person, the one who in some way acknowledged that Jesus was who he is, with maybe even just like little evidence. I was like, that's a lot of faith. You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay. I see. I
That
see.
that that's a lot of faith to acknowledge something beyond the shadow of doubt, or just your thought wise.
Yeah.
I mean, with what he was, I mean, that guy was going to die anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I I, I could. I mean, I would say it's faith, but I mean, I have a hard time understanding what it means as well. You
Mm.
know,
Wow.
and
Okay.
the word faith is thrown around a lot at times. Like, if you have faith, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, like earlier, what I mentioned about like destiny and what you ask about destiny and fate, I'm like,
Yeah.
does it? But does it like? Does it? Does it? Does it? Is it in his will? Is it in his plan? Does it give
Mm,
him glory?
mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay. So it could
Because
be
the thing is that
interesting. Okay.
the thing was that a lot of people think that just because you now have this knowledge of the Almighty, powerful God, that you are now, you know, that these rules that were before, in terms of like
Yeah.
life and death,
Yeah.
push
Yeah.
and pull, it does not apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
That in some ways is true, and in some ways it's not. If anything, it's a more I personally feel more of a misinterpretation and more of an ego and self-centered thought. You know what I mean?
Mm, okay.
You know?
Okay. I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Because now they think they're above they have this because I my dad's a pastor, but everyone but my background may not I don't that's not important for the most part, that my dad's a pastor. Though he is a pastor, that's probably why I'm more, how do you put, um, either well versed or more educated in this particular, you know, understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but sometimes there will be people with this found knowledge use this to belittle other people.
They're basically taking advantage of it to. It's like what you just said, kind of feeding into their own ego, right? Just trying to,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a good example is I'm not sure you're familiar with Catholicism in terms of, if you repent, you have these rights.
No, I'm not.
Like you have to go to the priest to repent.
Okay.
That's not in the scriptures.
Oh,
It's not in the scriptures.
so it's like something they just kind of made up later on, kind of deal.
I don't know at which point, because they don't have that authority to, you know to forgive you of what, like, did you, and if you came to a priest and you were covered in blood and you were like, Father, I've sinned,
I've
and
said I killed someone. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, you're still gonna have to, they're still gonna have to call the cops on you, you know.
Right,
So
right,
so
right, right.
it's a very uh I'm not sure if I'm still on topic.
You are.
It, yeah, it's that authority, or this idea of forgiveness, of wiping away sin, is not our ability or
Yeah,
our power.
it's almost like doing that in itself is almost a sin, kind of.
Because it is, because there's a warning in the scriptures. Even though there were the 12 apostles, even though there are a few people that, um, by God's mercy, had revealed himself,
Yeah.
uh, Paul especially had pointed out that there were many people who will rise who were going to be fake ass prophets. You
Well,
see that, you see, and like, if you like what was mentioned, the world will get worse, and you see these people who have profited from, um and taking advantage of people's desperation, because the world is at times a very horrible
yeah,
place, and there are times you sometimes don't want to continue fighting because it's hard.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you tend to, can tend to get tired.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's I think I lost track of what we're talking about.
No, 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 no. This is good though, because this is really cool stuff, because like what they're saying is almost true too, because there's in anything, right? There's always gonna be posers or pretenders in this world, right? There's always gonna be fakes or frauds, and that's been pretty consistent, throughout history.
Yeah, because if, like, I believe we're in a time where, like, women and children are given education, where at one point, like back in the 60s, 70s, in the dark ages, women and children didn't have that luxury.
Yeah,
we talk about the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
We talk about the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Religion itself was pretty prominent at the time, especially Catholicism. You know, I believe at the time children were not even allowed to, like, you know, memorize a verse, and this is well documented as well.
Mm.
You know, like the time now is very different. But
It's actually quite deep though. This stuff is quite deep because it really does take a lot of brain power. Because it sounds simple, but you really have to really think about it, right? To truly
yeah,
understand, and it's crazy, and that's why I just
like
become so fascinated with it a little bit, you know, with these religions and all that.
because what I don't think people notice is that if those people who that you hear the minister talk about, like those supposedly prominent, I guess, heroes of the Bible,
Oh,
or
like, oh,
ones
chosen
who they would say chosen, but the thing is that it's like that saying: if you hear if a tree falls in a forest, if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound, or do you? I forget, is that one close? Yeah, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
for me, I
So
would say yes.
yeah. I mean, that's because somebody maybe have told you if if a tree, and we know what a tree is, and we know a tree fall.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at, for each of these heroes or the people who um, had been inspired from God, from what I hear, what people sometimes would say, the fact is that they heard him. Were they like really trying hard to listen,
Mm.
or was it a special ability that they have, like like mutants and their unique skills and powers to be able to, like,
Yeah.
sense these, like, abilities or whatever. But the thing is that you could say you want to hear his voice, that's like a request.
Mm.
But if he's gonna make himself reveal himself, he will make himself reveal himself.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You know, because I'm sure Moses at the time, he's probably heard stories
Yeah.
about God, because it's generation after generation.
Yeah.
Stories were probably told time and time after again. But, like, um, when God revealed himself, he revealed himself.
It's
It's
basically
the same with
it's his choice, basically. And
yeah, and because there's a lot of people in this world. Like, at the time, maybe it's more it's just the timing, because God sent his son. Now his life on earth,
mm.
his Holy Spirit. Yeah, God, I'm sure, could make himself known whenever he wants to. That's why there's that whole warning of the end of times. But
Mm.
then before the New Testament, like with the flood, I mean, there's not really much of a distraction like now. I mean, Noah was probably, after the flood, everything was cleared out. It
Yeah.
was just him and his family. So he
Yeah.
probably would be able to, he probably was able to probably hear God more, or
Mm.
more, you
So
know?
basically, it's almost like less distraction, so that way you're really able to. Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because you see that in like when Moses, when he heard God, it was like from a burning bush, right? But he was like up in the mountain. He was away from the city.
Mm.
Um, like, what's another good example? You have the prophets that
Yeah.
came to visit
Yeah.
uh the kings, and then, like, this is what God has told me. It's a warning from
Yeah.
him. Like, are you familiar with Jonah and the big fish?
I am not. I am
Yeah,
not.
yeah. What's
What about it? Is there like another story to it?
well,
Or
yeah, he was a prophet. So then, um what's but then the thing is that, sorry to put that on pause. There are people who I guess, I wouldn't say God did not make himself known, but he may have been there. But you got the story of Joseph and his collarful coat. Like, he was, like, thrown in the pit, then taken to Egypt, and then later became um second in command.
mm.
But thing was that if you read each chapter and each passage, and God did not like make himself known like he did with Moses, or 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 like any other people who had that opportunity to hear his voice.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then he made himself known in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
No, each person is different.
Different. Oh, okay. I see. Wow. Okay.
It is different, but then it still fell in line
Sure.
to him,
Yeah.
and him and
Just
his group.
using a different method, basically, in a way.
This yes. I guess you could say, yeah, in that particular sense, yeah.
Okay. Damn. You know, like this, I will have to have a part two about this because the reason why is I feel like there's so many more stories about it where like it's definitely will get my brain juice going. And then you seem to know all these stories too. Like I've heard of some of them, but I don't know like the full story. Even like
Like
even the whole Noah thing, like some of it I knew from watching a freaking movie. So I mean,
like it's been talked about, and you have the
yeah,
History Channel, right?
it has been talked about. Yeah,
The Bible at times the way it is because it's translated from a different language.
yeah,
Um, there are many different versions. A lot of times it's very difficult to digest
yeah,
because it's because sometimes the words that they use are have a very totally different meaning from
yeah,
what's being understood today in English. You know,
yeah.
I use Google
Hey man,
most of the
whatever
time.
works. Whatever
Yeah,
works, man.
yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
works.
And then you find people just I would the reason I would point to Google is people who I suppose they're experts, but they've spent maybe either majority of the time diving into the stories and the meaning behind what is being said, and the meaning behind why an event has occurred. I'm not expert, but then there is this passage in the Bible that says God work in mysterious ways.
Yes.
You know but I gather that I'm hungry for that myself.
Mm,
That's why I will go on Google, like I have a question, I'm trying to like wrap my
mm,
head around it. You know,
see, I see.
you could hear somebody give a sermon about it,
Yeah.
but that's like what they've like read and what has been shared or what they came to understand. But the very most important thing, you have to do that deep dive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's basically how do you how can a kid learn how to
Yeah.
ride a bike? There's that fear,
Yeah.
because would I be able to ride at all? Would I be able to like even even do what the other person is doing? I'm still perplexed because the thing is that there's only like it's I mean, people already made it clear he's God, so he knows everything. So that
Yeah.
means he has to handle a bunch of like
Right.
different things. So
Right.
a lot of times when people come to prayer and they're seeking, and I do this, I'm very self-centered, because I mean, there's that need, the desire that you want to fulfill,
Sure.
but
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
but what am I getting at? I think I've kind of gone off the rails with this, but
No,
um
it's cool, man. It's a lot of fun, dude. This is I love listening to this kind of stuff just because it gives me a lot to think about, and also it provides new information for me where I mean, well, it's not like all of a sudden I'm gonna get converted, but it's just interesting knowledge to just have, right? Because sometimes if I'm wondering about a certain question, maybe I'll go back to like a certain story and be like, oh, okay, this thing happened. Okay, maybe these are the reasons, and then maybe it kind of maybe could relate to the real world too. Um, at least that's kind of how I take it. As for me, just being like a story listener, basically, in a way.
well, I look this way. We were born in a specific time.
Yes.
The Bible was like what translated centuries ago.
Yeah.
And as uh, as simple it is to understand what had transpired and what people like went through and what they later understood, that it does not take away the time that they had to put in or the time they lost. There's that struggle. Like, yeah, you went back to how do you know you found that good friend? Say like, you know, a certain point in time and you meeting people, but best way to know is over time. Like,
yeah,
I have close friends that I've grown up with, and then they've, you know, they've gone, they doing their own thing. They have family. But then when we see each other, it's like time stood still.
Yeah,
we click immediately. You know,
wow.
it's like no time was lost. That's the thing about time. There's the, you know, there's the physical time that transpires. There's the idea at the time where this relationship that you've nurtured, it's everlasting. Even though it's like it's small because we grow, we grow old. We're not a child no more. Everyone's doing their own thing. But then when I meet with an old friend that I haven't seen for ages, we just like, it's just like no time has lost at all. And we just like catch up on what's going on and just like reminisce on the old good times we've like, you know, spent with each other. Yeah.
Oh man, that's very cool, David, man. I told you, you're wise, man. You got all this knowledge. But fuck, no, but we definitely had to do a part 2 on this at some point in time. Yeah, you know, because every time I enjoy so much listening to these stories, I hate it that I always have to kind of cut it short and wrap it up, you know, because usually these conversations, I may, maybe later in the future I might extend these conversations to be longer, but I always try to cap at 1 hour. Either way, yeah. So for our listeners out there, or any audience, anything we've discussed earlier today, I'll post some information on the description so people can look it up if they're curious. We did go review a lot of these scripture stories, so I'm sure I'll look some of the stuff up and post it on the description. But yeah, and thank you, David, for being on and coming on board and having a chat with us. Just always a pleasure talking to you. It's always a lot of fun. We'll do a part 2, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for, I mean, if I mean, a good probably sample is Moses, was the Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was a movie done by DreamWorks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It won a couple like Nobel Prizes, but yeah, I totally recommend it. I mean, it's exaggerated.
Okay.
I could recommend a couple films like The Ten Commandments, probably a good one. You probably never heard. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I'll probably
thanks a lot, dude.
No, thanks, man. I'll probably look it up. I'll post it up, and yeah, you know, we're gonna be back next week for another episode. So everyone, circle back next week. Stay tuned, and we'll talk more.